categories of faith and then subdivisions of those categories of faith. But faith is of the soul. So the original faith of the soul is faith in the Supreme, because we're part of our soul Supreme. So that faith is covered by forgetfulness and varieties of modes. It comes out different ways. But the original faith is faith in the Supreme, in our relationship with the Supreme. So that faith that's inherent is awakened by something that's bestowed. And that something that's bestowed is mercy. Krishna's mercy. And Krishna's mercy specifically, we discussed, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes, it's bestowed by the Madhurya Bhaktas, because Krishna gives power of attorney to the Madhurya Bhaktas to bestow him in the form of his mercies. So the Madhurya Bhakta, who's carrying bhakti, contacts a soul that says yes instead of no, then that's that faith that in the Supreme becomes nourished. So for preliminary faith, sadhu sangha, following that is with sadhus, the faith person does what sadhus with the sadhus, and that is they do bhajana kriya. So we discussed, Rupa Chakravarti Thakur presents what are some of the obstacles in bhajana kriya and how are those obstacles surmounted by bhakti. And then comes the anartha nivritti stage. That's where we are. Here's a nice graphic that you can't see so well. What's that?
Share.
It's not screen shared? Oh.
No. In this Zoom.
Huh?
In the Zoom.
Start sharing.
Oh. Want to show me how to minimize this on my screen? It's not showing over here, but it's showing on my screen, so it's probably showing on the Zoom screen. Yes?
1 second.
Let's see, I believe it's in the more category. Optimize.
High floating religion. Yeah.
All right. Looks good. Okay, here on the screen, it's a mini screen. But what it says down, because the screen I can't do that with the laser pointer part. Down here is bhajana kriya. Can you see it? I can see it. There it is, that little red spot. Bhajana kriya. So we've already discussed these 6 stages. The one on the far left is Utsahamai, and then sequentially all the way over to the right side. This one over here on the right side is Tarangarangani. Tarangarangani means enjoying the waves. The Rangani, the small waves of success, and trying to becoming an enjoyer of the fruits of bhakti successfully performed. When bhakti is successfully performed, something comes to you. some title, some distinction, some honor, some praise, something subtle. Not necessarily, money remuneration, just acknowledgement from people. Oh, you're good. You led such a nice kirtan, or you organized the Rath Yatra festival so well, or you cooked a nice offering, or the deities look so great, and then you think, glad some people notice, people that deserve to be noticed. Of course, that's taking it to an extreme, but that's one of the obstacles, because the goal of bhakti is prema. So it blocks one experiencing love for Krishna in each one of these 6 stages of bhajana kriya. And as you notice, although those on the other side of the room you can't see, but just about, this is a graphic of a creeper that's rooted in the ground, and it starts with a seed, and it grows and it grows. So the bhajana kriya is a growing stage. As it goes further, the unwanted things in the heart become eradicated a little bit more, then a little bit more. It's a progressive stage, according to what Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes. It continues, you'll see a chart in a while. It goes all the way up to that ends with Prema Bhakti. So get used to it, because it's going to be with us for a while. Eradication of unwanted things. But some of them go quickly, some of them in between, and some of them we're attached to foolishly. So there's the Anarjana Vritti stage that's above the Bhajana Kriya stage in this creeper of bhakti. And we spent some time with 2 of the 3, the 3 of the 4. I'll remind you what those 3 are. There's anarthas that arise from sin. That's easy to understand. There's anarthas that arise from piety. What's that? There's fruits of piety. From piety comes fruits of piety. And so one may indulge in being an enjoyer of the fruits of piety that impedes bhakti, or it blocks prema bhakti, like a cloud in the sky. When sunlight doesn't come through. Trying to be an enjoyer, and tendency, inclination to be the enjoyer. And then there's, stages of that. Objects, attaining heavenly planets, attaining mystic powers, attaining kinds of liberation. We had some discussion yesterday evening about how's that material. What's material in the sense that I'm still at the center. It's about me. And I'm enjoying, not Krishna's enjoying, because bhakti is Krishna's enjoying, but I'm enjoying, which isn't real enjoyment. It's not pure bhakti in any case. So it's an obstacle. And then comes what here's the topic that we didn't get to complete, and that's where anarthas that come from aparad. We all know what aparad means. It means offense. And then there's different kinds. Get ready. We're in the bhakti process, there are different kinds of offenses. And the gravest of those offenses is, on the far left side, is namaparad. Now, something very wonderful about namaparad is it eradicates seva aparad, or the consequences of making some mistakes or offenses in seva, because there's reactions for seva aparad. But the holy name has the power to eradicate those things. Vaishnava aparad, that's a subset of namaparad, and jiva aparad, just offending people in general. So we're going to spend some time this morning on the aparad of nama because it's the most serious and the most persistent. And we'll see from the chart, it goes all the way up, just up until I'm touching the end of the bhava stage, and it's completely gone in the prema stage. Okay, so this is now the topic. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is treating Nama Parad. I mentioned this yesterday evening because we didn't get to very far in this topic yesterday evening. It's such an important topic that there's a devotee who's conducting so far now a 34-part seminar on nectar of instruction. And he's as far as verse number 7 of nectar of instruction. And so far he's conducted 2 classes, 2 hours each, covering the first 4 of the 10 offenses against holy name. In other words, there's a lot to say about offenses against the holy name and the consequences of them and how to avoid them, etc. And we're not going to spend 4 hours discussing 4 of the 10. We're just going to touch on the topic because that's what Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur does. But when he touches the topic, he does what most acharyas do. He says the most serious among them is sadhu ninda. So sadhu doesn't just mean somebody in the renounced order or somebody that's vastly learned. And it's not that it doesn't apply to all the people in the room, because you're not sadhus, right? So I can offend those people in the room because you're not sadhus. That's not what it means. He's very clear, and spend some time discussing. It's anyone that's engaged in service unto Krishna, that is, someone who's carrying bhakti, is doing service to Krishna, and someone who's doing service to Krishna, and you offend such a person, then that's a very serious nam aparad, because that devotee who's doing some service, among their services is chanting the holy name. So the offense to the devotee that's chanting the holy name is offense to the holy name. That's the idea. And he uses different verbs to describe its criticism or feeling animosity or malice, some bad attitude towards somebody. And there's a little bit of this important understanding of the difference between behavior and the person. But let's go to Bhagavad Gita and Samadarshana. Pandita Samadarshana. So to see Sama, all of the entities, it's not the body or the mind or the speech or the activities, because those aren't the person. The person is the soul. So one can see distinctions between bodies and minds and behaviors and speech, but not identify any of those things with the person, with the soul. Specifically, for a soul that's carrying bhakti in an awakened state enough that that devotee, that Vaishnava, is chanting Krishna's name or names of the Supreme Lord. It may not be chanting Krishna's name. It may be chanting Ram's name or some other name, Nrsimha's name or some Narayan's name or some other name. And to offend that devotee, that's very serious. There's unintentional and then there's deliberate. There's a distinction made between the two. But if there's offense made, the consequences are serious, and there's a remedy that's given in Madhurya Kadambini. It's very nice. I'm going to read some, there's a whole long paragraph. What to do if. you somehow make that mistake, make that offense to the devotee. Take shelter. Qualifier. Supposing that devotee doesn't have good behavior, they're not a pure devotee. So if that person's not a pure devotee, it's okay because they're not a pure devotee. It's not okay. He warns. And supposing one thinks, well, they're a very elevated devotee, they'll be very forgiving, so I don't have to worry about it. One shouldn't think like that either. The devotee is a devotee, a sadhu is a sadhu, is a devotee. So here's what's to be done, according to Madhurya Kadambini. One should, compound the offense. This is this other point. You think they're very elevated, no problem to seek forgiveness because they're going to be forgiving anyway. So one shouldn't do that. Or, yes, they're a Vaishnava, maybe they're an elevated Vaishnava, but there's this shortcoming, that shortcoming, and so it's not so important. That's another mistake that one should avoid. Rather, take shelter at the feet, even if the dust from the lotus feet of the devotee will be forgiving, even if the devotee isn't forgiving. It's a little tricky. Sometimes people get tricky. So here's one of the renderings or translations of Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur's book. I'm just going to read it because it's so nice. The first offense is to criticize and blaspheme the devotees. Blaspheming in this context means to be envious of and antagonistic towards the saintly devotee. If one accidentally commits this offense against a Vaishnava, he must bitterly repent his low behavior. Just as poison is counteracted by poison, similarly, the offender, having set aflame his spiritual life with blasphemy, must be purified in the fire of contrition. The offender must go and fall at the feet of the devotee he reviled and beg forgiveness until he is again able to please that Vaishnava. He must approach the devotee with trepidation in his heart and think that by pleading, praising, offering repeated obeisances, or by any means must satisfy the offended devotee. Yet, important, if for some reason he is unable to appease the devotee, then the offender must continue to serve him for many days in a way that will impress and satisfy him. In case the offense is of such serious nature that the Vaishnava's ire remains unpacified, then the offender must strongly condemn his own abominable actions and think, oh, how shameful. I have blasphemed a Vaishnava. I shall have to suffer millions of years in the fire of hell. With a heavy heart, the aparadi must then take complete shelter of the holy name and chant incessantly, knowing this to be the only hope. It's a very clear path to follow. I mean, there's other questions in this context. Supposing you don't even know it and someone feels offended. Or supposing you go out of your way to do something nice for someone and they feel the opposite. Why did you hurt me? Ever had that happen? So what do you do then? Is it an offense? You know, the perception is not what the intention was. But so if someone somehow feels offended, and you come to know, supposing you don't come to know about it, that's another one. But if you come to know about it, then you're obliged to share. Now, they may say, no, I don't believe you. Your intention was crooked and mean and something, and I don't believe you, and so I don't forgive you. You're just covering up. Still, you have to try. So, if there's an wrongly perceived act or speech or conduct of some kind. Why? Because it's very serious. There's nothing more serious. There's nothing more serious than Namaparad, and amongst the Namaparad, it's the topmost serious one. Of course, there's Guru Aparad, which amplifies Vaishnava Aparad. But it's very serious. So one should take it seriously and take the corrective measures. And then this tells us, supposing you try earnestly and still somehow there isn't forgiveness, there isn't the acknowledgement from the other side, then what? What's indicated here? Contrition in the heart, chant incessantly, because then your shelter is Nama Prabhu, and knows that you tried. And if Nama Prabhu gives forgiveness, then you're okay. But Nama Prabhu wants to see that you'll go to that Vaishnava, rectify. Now, what about the ones that you don't even know because you don't get that feedback? If you get the feedback, then you know what to do. If you don't get the feedback, then someone feels offended. This question was asked to Prabhupada. It's a good question. This was at the Radha Damodar temple when Prabhupada was giving classes in nectar devotion, and this topic came up in nectar devotion, naturally, because it's Rupa Goswami's teaching is being expanded. And Prabhupada's answer was, therefore, in all of our temples, we say every morning after Mangalarti, Vancha Kalpatarubhya Svam, Kripa Sindhuvya Evacha, Patitanam Bhavadevyo, Vaishnavevyo Namo Namaha. Now, it's not so good just to do that mechanically, although it's easy to do mechanically. And it's a little more work to do it sincerely, but that's the purpose, or what's one of the purposes, is there may be, likely there is, examples of some offense that you unknowingly committed, and someone felt something by that offense that you unknowingly committed, and you'll never know about it. Now, sometimes you come to know about it later, but in many cases you don't. So sometimes devotees worry, I'm having this difficulty, that difficulty. Maybe it's because of some offense I made to a Vaishnava that I didn't even know that I made that offense. And it could be, but it didn't have to be. That's the cause of some difficulty. But the remedy is been given by our founder Acharya. So the point is, it's serious business. Here is the scriptural reference to support what his statement is. This is taken from Hari Bhakti Vilas. Hati nindati by Dveshti Vaishnavan Navi Nandati. So 6 transgressions against the Vaishnavas are to assault or kill a Vaishnava. That's pretty serious. To needlessly critique / gossip. So nindati, so sadhu ninda, nindati. To needlessly critique or gossip about a Vaishnava. Aveshti, to envy a Vaishnava. To not properly greet a Vaishnava. To become angry upon a Vaishnava who is not one's disciple means you have a disciple, you can get angry, it's okay. It's a little bit like the statement in Bhagavad Gita about speech in the mode of goodness. 17:15, you can look that up later. Speech in the mode of goodness is one should not correct another unless there's very clear line of this is a dependent, a child, or some other kind of a teacher-student relationship or spiritual master-disciple relationship. And then it is okay, in fact, it's part of the responsibility to sometimes be strong and make some points of correction. Now we're going to be gentle and strong at the same time, but points of correction are part of that service of being in a responsible position for others who are in a dependent position. Course correction words are needed sometimes, not all the time. So to become angry upon a Vaishnava who is not one's disciple, to not exhibit happiness on seeing a Vaishnava, that's very strong. It's right in when you read Nectar Devotion or Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, you'll find these things in the list of 64. This is just 6. But transgressions against the Vaishnava. So there's some scriptural reference. Here's some of the other offenses. The second offense, considering the demigods to be equal to Krishna. Now, most of us don't have that problem. Maybe you know some people who have that problem. Most of us don't have that problem. So his expanding of this, again, one can take a couple of hours going through any one of these. There's different types of jivas, so he's going quickly. Covered, and those who are not covered. And those who are not covered, there are those that are influenced by the opulence feature of the Supreme, and those that are not influenced by the Aishwarya or opulence feature of the Supreme, meaning the residents of Vrindavan, for example. They're not looking to Krishna as God because he shows all this opulence, but they're uncovered jivas, or another category besides types of jivas, Lord Shiva, Lord Vishnu. He quotes from Hari Bhakti Vilas. One who considers Brahma and Shiva and other demigods on an equal level with Lord Narayana is certainly wrong. Is certainly an atheist. Later. That's strong. Atheist. Pashandi. Skipping to number 4, disrespect of the Vedas. And what does that mean? His explanation. Because the Shrutis, that portion of the Vedas that's Rig, Sama, Yajur, and Atharva Veda, do not specifically and directly mention bhakti, so one may disrespect them. Rather, they emphasize rituals for elevation to heavenly planets, Karmakanda section of the Vedas. Rather, how should one see all that section of the Vedas? It's Vedic, it's from the Supreme Lord, so don't vilify. But it steps towards, and it's for people that aren't ready for bhakti, but it steps towards bhakti. How to nullify, praise the Vedas, praising those who practice the Vedas, those who teach the Vedas, etc. So far, that's 3. Sadhuninda, there's Sanskrit term for all of these. Demigods equal to Krishna, criticizing the Vedas, vilifying the Vedas, speaking in a demeaning way about the Vedas. And here's this chart. I already told you about. The important thing to notice is how long the list is from Namaparad. From sins, it's short. And anarthas that arise from bhakti itself gets moved very quickly also. However, offenses that arise from Namaparad, it's not absolute until you reach Krishna's lotus feet. It's gradual, partial, pervasive, almost complete, and absolute. So that's our Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's rendering. Of course, in the book, he doesn't make a chart. Commentators have taken his words and made it easy for us visually to see. So again, from this chart, the important thing is Namaparads are pernicious. They're very serious. It's hard to eradicate the consequence of Namaparad, and therefore chanting of the holy name is so important, and avoiding offenses is so important. Because you chant and make offenses while chanting the holy name, you got a problem. So it's not, the solution is not skip chanting the holy name. That's not the solution. He poses a question. It's another feature of good writing, or our acharyas. They make some statements. They support the statements with scripture. And then another thing that they do is some people have it's called Purva Paksha. They have another idea. And some people say, and so some people say, is it possible that even after attaining the lotus feet of the Lord, can anarthas arise again? Can you fall from that position, in other words? That's the question. And they point to King Chitraketu. He went to such a high position, and he fell. And then the answer given by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in this book is, in Chitraketu's case, his offense was apparent only. It was accidental and apparent. That is, even when he became Dhritarashtra, he was carrying bhakti. And not only bhakti, he was carrying prema bhakti. He became a demon carrying bhakti. What's that? He was fulfilling a desire of the Supreme Lord to teach a lesson to us. And so he was respecting Indra, but also attempting to kill Indra, because he knew Indra would defeat him. Well, he wanted to be defeated so he could get free from the body of Vritrasura. And when Indra panicked and dropped his thunderbolt weapon, he scolded him, pick up your weapon. Here's my neck, apply it to my neck, please. Free me from this body of Vritrasura. And it would speak words of praise of glorifying the personality of Godhead. So he was playing the role of, but wasn't what the role was. There was a purpose. And his prema was retained. That's the idea. Another example given by the author, Jai and Vijay. Their apparent offense was caused by their prema. What's that? You know the Jai and Vijay story, Mataji? You know the Jai and Vijay story? No, this Mataji sitting here. Do you speak English? Doesn't speak English. Okay. You know the story, but she doesn't speak English. Okay. And I don't speak Hindi, so. So in the case of Jai and Vijay, there's a longer explanation, but the short one is on the screen here. Here's the longer explanation. Because they were gatekeepers not just at the front, the seventh gate of Vaikuntha, sometimes they would be at the, in the palace of Narayana, his residential quarters, and they would guard his residential quarters. In other words, they were so intimately associated with Narayana that they knew his feelings. When you have close association, someone doesn't need to say, you understand, without their saying something that's going on with them. Very different ways, their facial expression or the mannerisms or something. So they understood our Lord Narayana, he wants some chivalrous exchange. It's a secondary rasa. But here in Vaikuntha, there's no chivalry. There's no chivalry with Lord Narayan. So they offered a prayer. Our dear Lord, to themselves, they didn't like come before him and standing with his folded palms. If you so desire, we can do that service. We can be in a position where we're in confrontation with you, and because of that confrontation with you, you can have some chivalrous exchange with us, and you'll win, of course, because you're the Supreme Lord. But if you want that chivalrous exchange, we can do that. We'll volunteer, if you so desire. So it's a silent prayer. And Lord Narayan knew that they knew his desire. And so he arranged. And the circumstance of the fall of Jai and Vijay was the Lord's arrangement for their satisfaction. It's a very nice explanation. There's a triple win. Because here's the triple win circumstance. One time, Jai and Vijay were told by Lord Narayan, I want to take rest. He doesn't need rest. I want to take rest. So you guard the door and don't let anybody in until I wait. Yes, sir. They're guarding the door, and the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, wants to enter. They said, sorry. Narayan said no one should enter. Goddess of fortune. I'm the constant associate of Lord Narayan, and I can't enter. She didn't say all that, but she was feeling that. Then later, Lord Narayan awoke. And so Jai and Vijay let her in. And when she went before Lord Narayan, among other things, she said, you should punish those two. They didn't let me in. And I'm the goddess of fortune. Now, his position was they did what I asked them to do, so they should be punished. But now here's the goddess of fortune wanting that they should be punished. What to do? Even Narayana becomes perplexed. So she had the desire they should be punished. And they had a desire that they should take the position of giving chivalrous exchange with Lord Narayan. And then here comes the four Kumaras. And after the four Kumaras were denied entrance into Vaikuntha, they made a curse. So now Narayan has got to uphold the curse of the four Kumaras, the desire of Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, and the desire of his gatekeepers, Jai and Vijay, called Leela. And so he did all of them, and they were all satisfied. Lakshmi was satisfied. They got reprimanded. 3-person material world is demons. Serves him right. But she's not retaliatory goddess of fortune. It's a Leela. And so forth. So what's being said here? The question at the top, can an artist arise even after attaining the lotus feet of the Lord? Jai and Vijay not only had attained, they were eternal associates of the Lord at his lotus feet. guarding his the entrance into the spiritual kingdom. But because of their prema, they somehow make us inimical to you, so you can enjoy the pleasure of fighting. Diminishing your affection for your devotee, please fulfill our prayer. So he didn't diminish his affection, he just made some arrangement. Here's another doubt. This is the Purva Paksha. When commentators are writing, they like to make statements, they support their statement from scripture, and then they bring up some other people that don't agree with them, might say this, and might say that. Sometimes it gets really exhaustive, because when they respond to what the Purva Paksha folks say, then they'll say to the response, yeah, but. And then they go to the next one, but the yeah, but is answered this way. So that's what's going on here in this book. Here's another doubt. What's that? How can there be any remaining anarthas for one who chants the holy name? For example, a Jamila, right? The Jamila, he was squeaky clean. Although he was dirty, but from chanting, he was relieved of all coverings and contaminations. He asked the question, here supplies the answer. The holy name, Nama Prabhu, being unhappy with the offenses made against it or him, does not manifest its power in the offender. So in the case of Ajamila, he wasn't chanting with offense. He wasn't chanting the pure holy name either. The third category, Namabhas. But that Purva Paksha person may say, well, wait a minute. The Amadutas are powerless to attack such persons. And there's an answer to that. Even so, intervention by the Lord of Death, Yama, and any other means of purification cannot free him from the anartha. Only the devotee himself can, by eliminating nam aparad's reaction. And the Vishnu Dutas intervene. So in case you don't have the intervention of the Vishnu Dutas, what are you going to do? Have the intervention of sadhu, who can tap you on the head, and it's okay now. Or they don't even have to tap you on the head. They can just say, it's okay now, by sound. So the mercy of the Vaishnava takes care of anomalies. What about offenders? Is it possible for offenders to lose the mercy of the holy name? Let's go back. There's obstacles, things that block the bhakti creeper. And offenses is one of them. There's 4 categories. Offenses is one of the categories. The most severe amongst the offenses is the offense to the holy name. And so one can become free from all of the other bad things that come from bhakti that blocked by the holy name. Is it possible to have the mercy of the holy name blocked? Definitely. He gives an example. Vishwanath, this is in the book. The servant of a vastly wealthy and capable master who becomes offensive to his master is consequently neglected. That can happen in a worldly circumstance, and the holy name can also withdraw mercy from the offender to the holy name. So in other words, one can chant the holy name, but the potency, the mercy dimension of the holy name can be withdrawn by the holy name. So the holy name is a person, and the person can withdraw the mercy. So what to do? And then it has this gradual, that mercy can be restored when one acknowledges the offense in the chanting of the holy name and makes sincere and prolonged endeavor to correct it. So what about any of us? Because this is nice notional stuff. What about us? And one of the offenses that's serious, maybe not offending a Vaishnava, because knowingly or unknowingly that may happen. But one of the offenses is something that we all do all the time, and that's inattentive chanting. Oh, inattentive chanting. What's the consequence of inattentive chanting? The potency of the holy name is reduced upon us. And supposing we do it a whole bunch, inattentive, then it's cumulative. What to do? Strive to be attentive. Supposing you sometimes strive and sometimes don't strive. And sometimes strive and sometimes don't. Supposing you're an unsteady bhakta. Most of us are unsteady in our bhakti. Sometimes and sometimes not. Sometimes not. Then it's going to take a long time. Supposing we don't want it to take a long time, then you have to be attentive. Attentive for a long time, because there's all that time that you were inattentive, and it has a cumulative effect. It doesn't go away easily. Inattentiveness doesn't go away easily. We all have that experience. I don't even have to ask for, is there someone that hasn't had that experience? Because I know we've all had that experience. So what to do? One thing, strive to be attentive. Okay, how do I strive to be attentive? By being attentive. It's like Prabhupada's answer to the question, Prabhupada, how do I become sincere? Prabhupada, by being sincere. Then, everybody knows what sincere is. And everybody knows what insincere is. So strive to be sincere. And you become sincere. Strive to be attentive. Not, okay, but I'm at the unsteady stage of bhakti, because that's where the topic is. It's unsteady before it's steady, before nishtha. Because that's what's coming next, is the stage of nishtha. Steady. And I'm unsteady with my attentiveness. Okay, that's good. You're honest with yourself. And you're sometimes and sometimes not attentive. Strive to be more attentive. Okay, what are some of the tools that I can use to strive to be more attentive? So you start, if you don't ask those questions, even if you're given the answer, it's going to bounce. But if you're asking those questions, you get the association of one who is more attentive than you are and gives sound vibrations that help you have tools and methods, and their association alone will help you. Then you can become more attentive tomorrow than yesterday. It's a project. It's a project of attentiveness and chanting. Another question, can one who commits nam aparad become averse to the Lord, to Guru, and to devotional service? The answer is yes. Not nice, but yes. Reaction to nam aparad can be compared to loss of appetite during high fever. Gradually, as fever reduces, appetite will return. Time and good medicine. So it's the good medicine of striving for attentiveness. Similarly, and I'm almost done for today. Continuing to chant even without taste, but for purification, gradually taste or the mercy of the holy name will return. And he writes, this is from Vishwanath, repeated doses of hearing and chanting of the Lord's holy name and other such processes gradually reveal everything in progression, like the rising of the sun, or turning this dimmer switch from dim to brighter and brighter. Just keep moving the dimmer switch to brighter and brighter. It doesn't happen mechanically, not just by making a sound and everything, because it's not mechanical. Don't experiment. Don't try mechanical and see if it happens, because it's not going to happen. So chant devotionally. Why does offenseless chanting of the holy name not eradicate all anarthas immediately? Remember the chart. So to get to offenseless chanting, that's a road, it's a journey. And if you reach that journey's end, offenseless chanting, why isn't it that everything is not taken care of immediately? Well, because there's fruits of offenses that may linger. Or, as he writes, just as a fruit tree bears fruits only in season, so also Namaprabhu reveals his mercy upon the offenseless chanter in due course of time. The process is not mechanical. Holy name, Namaprabhu is not obliged to anything. It's not mechanical, it's devotional. So in course of time, here's a Prabhupada paraphrase that I like. Supposing you're trying to chant offenselessly. You're not there yet, but you're trying. So Krishna may say, Namaprabhu may say, oh, he or she wants me. What about a little sense gratification? Or something that's distracting, something, whatever that's, each of us have or something. And that, jumps up and down and says something. Prabhupada, the devotee then says no. With a hand gesture and turning his head, no, I only want you. Oh. Maybe he or she really wants me. What about an obstacle? Well, Krishna may send an obstacle. And the tendency when there's an obstacle is to become absorbed in problem solving. And when you're absorbed in problem solving to such a degree that you forget your real mission, like who you are and what you're doing, in striving to regain your forgotten and covered relationship with Krishna, it's problem solving. But supposing the devotee doesn't depart from that higher mission while they're dealing with or just tolerating the obstacle or the hardship, that happens, that can happen. So then Krishna may say, oh, he or she really wants me. Then let me give myself to them. So it's a relationship. It's not a mechanical anything. In due course of time. Sins committed in the past due to bad habits are as harmless as the bite of a serpent without his fangs. Sickness, lamentation, and other sufferings. This is Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 88. They're not due to prarabdha karma, rather the Lord is showing his special mercy. So this verse gets a substantial attention. Here's the verse, 1088. King Yudhisthira, after completing his Ashvamedha sacrifices, plural, asked a question of Lord Achyuta upon hearing the Lord's explanation of religious principles, which was chapter 87. Chapter 87 is the longest chapter in the whole Bhagavatam, and it's really complicated. So if you're really patient and you like a challenge of something that's really complicated, try it out. Chapter 87. So Yudhisthira has heard all this, and he's now completed some sacrifices. So he asks a question of Krishna. Why do the worshippers of the Supreme Lord Hari not enjoy wealth and sense gratification, material opulences? And paraphrased, Krishna's reply, if I especially favor someone, I gradually deprive him of his wealth. Then the relatives and friends of such poverty-stricken man abandon him. In this way, he suffers one distress after another. How's that kindness? Because it leaves that person who has some residual affinity for things material. He takes away the things material for the purpose of giving the opportunity, at least, for exclusive shelter at his lotus feet. Prabhupada said, this is what happened to him. And when it was happening to him, he wasn't happy about it. But when we read the verse, he realized he should be happy about it. Because it was Hari's special mercy to take away his opulence and everything and leave only one thing, which was what his father had given him and what Bhakti Siddhanta had given him and his true well-wishers had given him, which was shelter at the lotus feet of Radha and Krishna. In conclusion, this is it for this morning, midday. An offensive devotee may appear to suffer more than a non-devotee. The masterful Lord may send these sufferings with the plan to increase such a fortunate devotee's humility and his longing for the Lord. This is this text 88. Again, when confronted with sufferings or reversals, an offensive person may lose taste. Within all devotional activities, however, someone may argue that he never made any aparad. So why is he not getting full mercy of the Lord's holy name? And the answer is, offenses are the reason why no symptoms of prema are experienced when performing hearing and chanting. In other words, you can't say, I didn't make any boo-boos. The very fact that prema is not quickly manifest is a verification that there were boo-boos. There were mistakes, there were offenses, things wrongly done, and there's consequences for that. Supposing you're ignorant, you don't know better. Prabhupada's example, fire still burns. A child touching fire, the fire doesn't consider, oh, he's only a child. He doesn't know, so it won't burn. The fire will burn. The laws of nature are real, and the laws of spiritual reality are real. And if one is in ignorance, there's no excuse. Now, this is a sneak peek at what's coming next. It's chapter 4, the fourth shower of nectar. Nectar begins to flow, moving from unsteady to steady. We saw these verses before, so this is a repeat. Nick, we can say the verses together, if you can see them on the screen. Srinvatam Sakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Ridyan Tapsto Yamadrani Vidhanoti Saritsapam. That's verse 17 from chapter 2. Translation, Prabhupada's translation. Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma, super soul in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. Then how's the next one begin? Text 18. Nashta. Nashta prayeshu avandreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttamastoke bhaktir bhakti namaste. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost, this is describing the Nishta stage, it does completely, but almost completely destroyed all that is troublesome to the heart. And letting service unto the personality of God who is praised with transcendental songs, Uttama Shloka, is established as an irrevocable fact. This is our last slide for this session. 6 enemies create 6 waves. Here's the 6 enemies. Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Moha, Mada, Matsarja, and they create waves. Distress, illusion, hunger, thirst, old age, death are the waves. So here's the same chart. On the left, the 6, and then the 6 enemies create distresses. 6 kinds of distresses, or 6 waves. It gives the Sanskrit for the distresses. The last, this is the same chart, only we're going up a little higher. There's the Anartha Vritti. You see the Anartha Vritti, this thing here, Anartha Vritti. And there are 4 stages in the Anartha Vritti that we discussed already. That is, anarthas that arise from sin, from piety, from bhakti nicely performed, and from offense. And coming attraction tomorrow is going to be this section. This is the last, these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 residual obstacles in the Anartha Vritti stage. And that's what we're going to be discussing tomorrow evening. The end. It's a journey. And this is just, 2 verses from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, expanded by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, very expertly, of course, making references from other places, but explaining the stages of bhakti in a nicely expanded way. And it's important for us to know how does it begin, what's the intermediate stage, and how to progress further, and what are the obstacles. I'm wondering how this nice lady that doesn't speak English, do you understand English? Or only Hindu?
She understands a bit.
A bit. You're very patient. I don't know if I could sit through a whole Hindi class as peaceful as you are, hearing all this in not your mother tongue. So my respects to you for your capacity to hear. Here's a little Prabhupada story. For some period of time, Prabhupada was traveling through India with devotees, conducting Pandal programs. And in most cases, he spoke in English. But in some cases, depending upon the audience, they didn't understand English, and so he spoke in Hindi. And so the sannyasis would sit on the stage with Prabhupada, and they would have nice kirtan and dance and the whole thing. And then when the kirtan was over, Prabhupada would speak. And when he would speak, on one occasion he began speaking in Hindi. So these American, European sannyasis looked at each other and they started to get up and walk off the stage. And Prabhupada said in English, "Stay and listen. Even if you don't understand, it's purifying." And then he repeated. In many cases, I heard from my Guru Maharaj, and his speaking was so high, I wouldn't understand. My brain was puzzled. It was his words. My brain was puzzled. But I had faith in the sound vibration would purify me. So you stay. So of course they stayed, you know, and whatever else happened, they were purified because the sound vibration from Prabhupada, even they didn't understand the meaning of the words, the sound vibration was acting as the soul platform. Like people may not know the meaning of Hare Krishna mantra. That's okay, if you would say. Doesn't matter if they know the meaning or don't know the meaning. It's purifying just to hear kirtan. Let's see if there's some discussion. You're all very patient. It's 20 minutes after 12. We're going for a while.
I think one of the most frequently heard word today is aparana. Offense.
Yes.
Disrespectful. There's a slide showing that the Jaya and Vijaya case is like, could offense be made after one appertaining to the they're just wondering, in that case, on the one hand is when Jaya and Vijaya stop Lakshmi from entering into the palace to see Lord Narayana,
Yeah.
and Lakshmi become angry towards them, and she complained to Lord Narayana to do something, and so in that case, I'm just thinking, is Lakshmi also made an apparat towards the Jaya and Vijaya?
Not at all. Because Leela. What does that mean? That's kind of like a whitewash. And it's just Leela Prabhu. Means she only does what Lord Narayan wants, and she did what Lord Narayan wants. Because that was not to help fulfill the desire of Jaya Vijay, who knew what he wanted. So she did what she did because of what Lord Narayan wanted her to do in their loving dealing, so that the rest could happen. That's how to understand things that are mysterious like that. So if it wasn't just the goddess of fortune and Leela, the answer would be yes.
So the same applies to the four Maras?
Yes, exactly, exactly. You know, they're Naistika brahmacharis. They don't get angry. They don't get angry. They don't get angry. But they got angry. And they cursed him. And that's severe. They cursed gatekeepers of Lord Vishnu in Vaikuntha. Those upstarts. What kind of brahmanas are they? But they're Shaktivesh avatars. There's not upstart. It's the Lord's inspiration for them to do what they did. And the Lord, it's part of the Lord's Leela. And the other, here comes the whitewash again. But it's okay. Not a whitewash, it's what's going on.
And just to follow up on that, another case that I'm thinking about is Bharata Maharaj. He turned away from practice when he was already on the stage of Papa.
Yeah.
So that is
That's different. Because it's at the Bhava stage, not at the Prema stage. And he made a choice. And so is it possible? The answer is yes. Is it possible to make stupid choices at the Bhava stage? Yes. It wasn't a lila. It was his choice. But he was protected nonetheless. By remembrance in his next two lives. It intensified his hankering, but it was a mistake.
Hope I'm not getting my point. To Lakshmiji and the woman is silent.
What's that?
You think
I'm
hopefully
saying-
she didn't make an offense?
I'm hoping I have not committed Aparada to Lakshmi and Kumara by my question.
Or Bharat Maharaj. No, you're because no. Yeah. Give her to her, let her.
Maharaj, the same slide you were talking about Chitraketu.
Chitraketu.
So Chitraketu is a study that he retained his training inside the
Chitraketu did what?
This slide, it said that Chitraketu retained his training despite
He retained his prema then.
some of the versions that I was hearing in teaching and having class, in the first word, the speaker was explaining that Chitraketu had a slight tinge of pride, because of which he tried to correct Lord Shiva, who is supreme to him, and because of which, he fell down in the Parvati, Mother Parvati will curse Chitraketu. But he accepts that as benediction,
Yes.
God's plan, and then that's how he his duration to attain came out as like shortened because he accepted so joyfully. And because of which he gets, he goes back to God and so fast. If he had not done that, right, if she had not cursed him, perhaps he would have just been just going on into the normal for a long time.
Yeah, these things are very relishable. And one can look at the same thing from different angles and see it from this angle, see it from that angle, and so if it's not, it doesn't mean if this angle is this, then that angle can't be that. That angle has to be wrong because of this. So one can see the same thing from different angles of vision, and it's
So
okay.
at that stage, he didn't have to, according to what, the way this slide says, is he already had him. Right? He had already attained him.
He retained his prema, if that's what it says.
So then
That means he already had it, yeah, the implied is he already had it.
no, but other version says that it was a slight tinge of pride. He recognized it. That is different.
Yeah, so once again, you can look at the same thing from different angles and derive appreciations. And the topics of Krishna and Krishna's pure devotees are like that. The topic to be churned and churned and churned, and all kinds of nice things come out as you churn it. So it's not that if it's this, then it can't be that. If it's that, it can't be this. So my recommendation is don't try to do that. They're different acharyas are looking at the same thing with a different lens, and they're seeing this, and the other one is seeing that. It is okay. If you start to get into if it's this, it can't be that, then you hit a wall. No, the logic is since his prema was preserved, even as the Trisura, that means he had already attained prema. So how can one who has already attained prema make an offense to Lord Shiva? It's not possible, because he's attained the stage of prema. Unless, an explanation is the Supreme Personality of Godhead put him in the fast lane. Fast lane. Go back to Godhead quickly. And once you're away is you make an offense against Lord Shiva in front of Parvati, you're gonna get clobbered. And what he said to Parvati was elegant, exquisite. And what Lord Shiva said to Parvati was similarly. He's not the offender, you're the offender. So, his topics of the first of the Lord and his pure devotees. What he had achieved before he went to Vidyat or Aloka was he had achieved prema. He was just the one that achieved prema. Why did they go to Vidyat or Aloka? Because there was something for the Lord to enjoy with the relationship with his devotees. In this case, King Chitraketu. And he's allowed to enjoy with his devotees. His devotees are happy to be enjoyed by him. So, look at it that way. Okay, we're almost done. Online something?
Online we have. I have one question.
Okay.
Before I take that. In this material world, we are striving with our sadhana right now. So definitely each and at least me, we do a lot of offenses. Whether it is starting with Namaprad or with the Vaishnavas. So the how we need to perceive if a devotee takes in a different permutations, like whether it is oh, I'm expecting something from my some devotee, and I'm not getting it. He made an offense to me.
Oh,
Okay, so
that's our foolishness as happy. But go ahead.
yeah, so that is a permutation, right? Now, the other way is, oh, some devotees will be having some kind of a nature. Maybe the intent may not be right, but we take it as an offense. Oh, that person.
Yeah, perception. That's opposed to reality.
Yeah, perception.
So what's your question?
The question is how to avoid this, how to address this. Basically.
How to address it? My answer to a question like this is pretty standard. It depends. And then what are some of the factors that it depends on? It depends on you, it depends on the person, depends on the relationship. So depending upon you, the person, and the relationship with the person, you may just ask some questions. Don't be accusatory and say, you did this to me, or something like that. But ask questions. This happened. What were you thinking? What was your intention? And what were you wishing to do when this happened? Because my perception was this is what happened. But I may not have perceived it correctly. And it may have misunderstood what happened. It may have misunderstood what your intention was. So, you're a blank slate and you want them to help you understand better. So that's a nice approach. There's others. It depends. And it's nice. One of the things that's good in any communication is not to win an argument or prevail in, my perception is right because it's my perception. But there's I forget what the Sanskrit terms are, but when you're interested in truth, and then once truth is derived what do you do once you have derived, an agreement of what truth is? Here's a for example that recently came across my horizon. There's a devotee that said something, did something. There's another devotee that sees that something in a different way than the person that did something, said something. And the person who's on the receiving end feels some pain, not necessarily pain directed towards the other individual, but feels some pain. Now, should something be done? And ideally if something can be done, it's ideal. Because leave things squeaky clean. But sometimes it's not so important, and sometimes it may require a third party, neutral individual to help an understanding between party A and party B. And what's the goal? It's just to make things squeaky clean. Have shared understanding. This is my perception, and that's your perception of what transpired. There's maybe some feelings on that person's side and on this person's side. At least, it'd be good to know, for both of you to know what the perception is. Because I've had the circumstance where, gosh, I had no idea. I had no idea. Well, let me do something, because now that I know that someone was feeling this when the intention was something else. There's some things you just let it go because it's not so consequential. And there's some other things you let it go. This is a lesson to me from Boyjan. And that is some things are between that person and Krishna. You just don't play Krishna's role. They have a relationship with Krishna. Krishna's going to help them. I trust Krishna, and I trust Krishna's going to help them. And it's not my position to try to get out the ironing board and take wrinkles out. So it depends.
Yeah.
What to do in circumstances.
So there are 3 questions for Maharaj.
I was going to say one other thing. One other thing is that to make that discernment takes intelligence. And where does intelligence come from? Super soul. How do you get intelligence from super soul? Become pure. If you're not pure, you're not going to get intelligence from super soul. You get an intelligence to, do la land stuff. It doesn't have anything to do with what Krishna wants. So purity is for sure what each one of us can strive for, and know that we're not there yet, but keep striving for it. This starts with the quality of our chanting. And that's the lifetime project. Okay, go ahead, on.
Thank you. So there are 3 questions. There are 3 questions. This is first one from Nipun Prabhu. Please accept my humble obeisances. Thank you very much. So, Maharaj, Mahabhava is associated with Radharani.
One of these lofty questions.
If this Mahabhava is Krishna Prema, then why is it categorized as Bhava?
Why not?
Also, Maharaj, can you please elaborate on absolute removal of anarthas by Namaprad only at lotus feet of Krishna?
Well, the elaboration is you can read the book because he explains it, but there's still the idea, the idea, the notion, the concept is things are still slippery. That means one can slip and fall up to that stage. When the cause of the slipperiness is Namaparad. That is to say, to explain it further, Namaparad is serious stuff. So chanting the holy name is the cure. And offenseless chanting is the way to get the full effect of the name. And if we don't chant in a proper way, we can have consequences that are difficult to remove. That's what we should understand. So it's serious business.
Yeah. Second is from Leela Thoughts. Thank you, Guru. Thank you, Maharaj. Your classes are always appreciated. In the verse where it is mentioned that all the troubles are almost destroyed, why is the word almost used?
What's the question?
But his question is why
Why
the
almost?
troubles are almost destroyed.
Almost, it's a verse giving some clarification about the nishtha stage. What's that? The nishtha is almost. There's beyond almost, and then, but this is the verse is describing the almost destroyed to nil. Keep going, it'll be destroyed to nil. But there's a stage where it's nishtha, almost. Next.
Yeah, last question. This is from Mataji. Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for such an enlightening class. My question is, since holy name is a person, how do we relate this to our children when they chant?
How do we relate this to our children when they chant?
When they chant.
What doesn't change? Fire burns. It doesn't matter if it's children or adults or Hindi-speaking grandmothers. Doesn't matter. Fire burns and the holy name purifies. So it applies to children too. Now, children are playful, but they're getting purification. It's the same fire, it's the same purification when it's just playful. So it's good in the parenting department that without intimidating children, it's good to help the children understand this is really important. If you're a playful child, then that's nice. And this is really important, so let's be especially attentive when having kirtan or when whatever, chanting on beads or something. So, then profiling it so that they can understand the seriousness or the importance at least, while being playful, as children will be. Okay, sure. Those of you way over there in the back, I don't know how to manage with this class because the screen is so small. But somehow you still here.
Because some of their must. No, no, बराबर